Levy. Hello my loves and welcome back to another podcast. Welcome back to School Your Spirit. Today we're going to be talking about how to be your number one cheerleader. I know personally this is something I struggle with for years and years and years. Even now there's definitely at times where I still struggle with this, and I'm never going to lie about that. Imposter syndrome is real and it's crippling when it happens. And I know that so many of you guys also suffer with imposter syndrome and also suffer with times where you want to give up and not do anything anymore and not get your manifestations and not get your desires. And it's 2023. We're not going to do that anymore. It's time to live our best lives, especially going into the year of 2024. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to achieve that and how to get into that mindset of being your number one cheerleader. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to support you more than you. No one's going to back your desires and back your manifestations and dreams more than you are. Because at the end of the day, nobody else wants what you want. It's really important that you back yourself. So let's get into it. So this is why I started my affirmation challenge the week just gone. So for me personally, when I hit the luteal phase of my cycle, I'm not a very good friend to myself. I'll admit that I'm not a very good friend to myself in those moments. So that's why I wanted to start the affirmation challenge, which leads me into obviously today's podcast episode. So if you're doing the affirmation challenge, let me know below in the comment section if you're watching the visual version, or if you're watching the audio version, just have a clap for yourself. That was me clicking. Happy as I can get, okay? I've got a mic in my hand, I cannot do both. It's for yourself because you showed up for 7 whole days, and I'm proud of myself too for showing up for 7 whole days. The reason I wanted to do that affirmation challenge was because I really wanted to focus on 7 different themes throughout that week. Obviously the first day was healing, the second day is self-love, the third day is boundaries. Tomorrow we're going to be touching on abundance. Obviously when you're listening to this episode, it's not tomorrow, it's already been. If you want to be a part of this affirmation challenge still, even though it's over, like the live part of it's over, you can still go back and do it as well. I really encourage you to do it, and I actually also really encourage you to do it in any moment where you're feeling like you're slacking a little bit on self-love, or maybe talking a bit of crap about yourself, or just not being like a very good friend to yourself. Because at the end of the day, you have to be your own best friend. You have to love you. You have to be there for you. As I said, you have to be your number one cheerleader. So I also have that on my Instagram highlights, so you can do it at your own pace. And I also will have a YouTube video up about the affirmation challenge as well. Actually, now that I think about it, this challenge is still going as I'm uploading this episode, so it actually hasn't finished. But please go check out my highlights if you haven't started it, or you're listening to this or watching this at a different timeline to the time that we're doing the affirmation challenge. So the first way to be your own cheerleader is to talk to yourself how you would talk to a friend. What I mean by that is you basically have to tell yourself nice things. So whenever those like icky, intrusive thoughts are kind of coming up, you need to just sit back. First of all, acknowledge that you're having them. It's okay to have bad thoughts. You're not a bad person. You don't hate yourself for having bad thoughts. It happens to everyone. The most confident people still get intrusive thoughts. It's a human thing. Like, we're all going to get intrusive thoughts at times, right? My number one advice is talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend. For instance, if I'm talking like crap on myself and I'm like literally treating myself like trash, I would just sit back, say, okay, Hannah, I hear you. I hear why you maybe think those things, but hear me out for a second. How about none of that's actually true? Would you talk this way to a friend? No? Then why are you talking to yourself like it? Don't talk bad about yourself if you wouldn't talk like that to a friend. And that's why I'm saying you need to be your own best friend at the end of the day. That's how it starts. Being your number one cheerleader is by simply being your own friend first. The second one that I really want you to focus on is sitting down with yourself and just kind of going over your manifestations and your desires and your goals, right? So manifestation at the end of the day, let's be honest, it's basically goal setting and taking aligned action towards those goals, and also believing in yourself, which obviously leads me into what I'm about to talk about. So you want to go over your goals and over your manifestations and desires, and you just want to say to yourself, I can do every single one of those. Secondly, I just want you to chuck timelines out the window when it comes to manifestations and desires and goals. At the end of the day, if you're putting timelines on things, like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, you do you at the end of the day. If it works for you, that's amazing. I personally teach people not to do that. If it doesn't work on timelines, only we do. When it comes to manifesting and goal setting, my top approach, and like I said, anything I tell anyone to do, is do not put timelines on things, because the thing is, it makes it really hard to achieve that goal when you're putting a timeline on something, because you're applying so much pressure to yourself. And as I said before, if a friend was doing that, what would you say to them? You would probably say, hey, just relax, like, you're doing amazing. And that's how you have to talk to yourself. You have to talk to yourself like a friend. You can kind of see the pattern here. Acting like your own best friend at the end of the day, and that's how to be a number one cheerleader. And with manifesting and goal setting and calling in your desires, another thing too is when you set small goals, it feels more achievable. And not only that, it makes it so that you're not going to be such a critic to yourself. The way I personally do it is I really only call like 2 to 3 things in at a time, because it means I'm putting my sole focus on one thing at a time. That way I can be my own cheerleader to every single one of those things. If I've got like a handful of things going on, that's stressful, and it's really hard to be a cheerleader when you basically have a whole team of things that you've got to organize. Just stick with 1 to 3 things, maximum of 3 things. Just stick with that. Trust me, it's so much easier. When it comes to being your own cheerleader, at the end of the day, when you're calling in your manifestations and things like that, you want to be able to be like, wow, I can do that. I can absolutely achieve that goal. I have everything I need to achieve that goal. It's just I have to replace my mindset, because that's the thing I think so many people don't realize that they're lacking. It's not that you're lacking all these like things, it's your mindset that you're lacking, which is why I'm saying being your number one cheerleader is so important, because if you're like that, then you will honestly achieve anything. You will call in those desires, you will call in those manifestations, and it won't be so hard. It's just about changing the mindset. It's going to be a shorter episode because I feel like I'm just going to get to the point. I don't need to extend on what I'm saying. I'm just going to say it, and I'm saying it with my chest. The last thing is, you will have people who will talk shit on you. I hate to say that, you're going to have haters in your life. Everybody does, right? You're going to have people who don't want you to succeed. At the end of the day, that's always saying more about them than what it ever will about you. And I want you to remember that whenever someone talks badly about you or anything that you're doing, it's because they are worried that they are not going to achieve that themselves. Everything is a reflection at the end of the day. Most of the times in those situations, it's just a mirror, and they're scared. Their ego is getting triggered to the point where they're thinking, I can't achieve that, so I can't have anybody else achieve that either. Which is really sad, and I will say I feel sorry for a lot of people who do genuinely feel that way. That has nothing to do with you. Zero, nada, nothing. And please remember that every time that comes up. Unfortunately, it's probably going to come up more than a few times in your life, so that's why I'm saying it's really important to remember that it has nothing to do with you. And I'll use myself for example. You see where I am in my life now. When I stepped into what I'm doing now, even now it's still coming up with the new things and the new avenues I'm going in. You're going to have people who are not going to be happy for you. You're going to have people who talk crap on you. I personally did have that, and I probably still have that. I'm just like in delusion land where like that, those people don't exist to me, because I don't exist in that energy. I don't exist in people who bring other people down. I want to be around people who want the best for themselves, and when you surround yourself with people like that, it's the best feeling in the world. But unfortunately, it does take a bit to get there. It doesn't happen overnight. Even now, like I show up online, enable myself to some degree to have people who want to view me in a way that I don't necessarily like, which has definitely been, and I've talked about this before, that's been a really hard thing for me to kind of work through, is my level of being perceived. And I always have to remind myself that has nothing to do with me, and at the end of the day, I have to back myself, because I'm not going to have everyone backing me at all times. I have to always back myself, and that goes for you too. You always have to back yourself. You have to be your cheerleader. You have to be the cheer squad. You have to be you doing things, and then you also have to be over there being like, yes, you're doing it so freaking amazing. And whenever I feel like, oh my god, I'm not doing enough, I'm behind, I'm this, I'm that, whenever those thoughts come up, and they do come up for me, absolutely, I'm not going to say they don't. I think most people experience those things. How you kind of counteract those feelings that come up. So when they come up for me, there is days where it absolutely, those thoughts win, and I think you're right. And that's me talking to myself. I'm like, yep, you're right, I am failing, I am behind, I am this, I am that. But then there's other days where I'm like, no, you're not any of those things. In fact, you're actually doing really amazing. Stop talking bad about yourself, because you're going to have other people who are going to talk bad about yourself. You don't want that to be you too. Don't let it be you as well. Let yourself talk nicely about yourself. And then lastly, on that note, I'm going to say that if people are talking bad about you, as I said, it says more about them than what it ever will about you. But you just have to remember, don't take the opinions of others on, because if you did that, where are you going to be in life? You're always going to have people, unfortunately, that are like that in your life. You're never going to escape from it. You're probably going to experience multiple times in your life. And I don't say that to dampen anyone's spirit. I say that because I want you to realize that you have to work through those feelings so that the next time it happens, you're a little less affected by it. Trust me when I say, over time, you will be less affected by the opinions of others. Trust me, trust me. So that's why I'm saying you need to be your number one cheerleader, because you're going to have people who don't like you for whatever reason, and usually because you trigger them. You're also going to have people who don't want you to succeed because they are not succeeding in their life, which is really sad. And then thirdly, you're going to have people who are so focused on their life that they can't always be your cheerleader too, because they're also being their own cheerleader. That's why I'm saying you always have to back yourself at the end of the day. And that's why I'm saying that affirmations for me personally have been really, really important. A really good step in the right direction. Being your number one cheerleader doesn't happen overnight, so don't put pressure on yourself. Over time, as I said, just like anything in life, it gets easier and it feels less hard. And I'm gonna leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll chat with you soon. A slay. Love you.